Hello, welcome to another live Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. Today we will be discussing rising unemployment. Can we stop it? Are we getting those jobs back? And for that we have Eleonora Gozzini from Italy discussing with us. Hi Eleonora.
Hi Marlen.
And I'm your host, Marlen Vargas del Razo, and I'm broadcasting from Mexico and Italy to the world. So let's begin with this discussion. I'd like to remind everyone that has been following the Hangouts up to now. We've previously had a discussion on technological unemployment with Nick Labretz, who actually also exposed the situation of why jobs are right now being mostly taken by machines, and how the future looks like in relation to a lot of jobs, millions of jobs being lost due to these technological unemployment process, as he calls it. So we will give a reference to that Hangout for you to also watch it if you haven't. And today we will be discussing about how this directly links in with living income. And so we will begin discussing with this feature of unemployment. Eleonora, what would you say about this, and which has been your reference to get into this topic as well?
Well, I would say that a future of unemployment is what is ahead for us, because many technologies will certainly end up replacing human labor. A few years ago, we would never have imagined that computers could have gone as far as, for example, perform a surgical operation next to a surgeon at the moment, or sort out news according to the taste of people, that they can work out through algorithms, things that people used to do by association, but that computers can do way better than we do. So what we have failed to see is that the growth of artificial intelligence is exponential. So it is not a linear growth like human growth. It is so fast that it is taking over the world by storm. So we need to realize that the jobs that are being lost now will not be coming back. There is no way that we can create alternatives to the job losses that we are experiencing at the moment. If you take, for example, a company like Foxconn, which has been in the news a lot of times for their mismanagement of the Apple factory in China. They have already invested in artificial intelligence for their factory, and this is the future as they see it for themselves. Now, if you think about the number of people that they used to employ in China, and how fast people will follow suit, because we have to face the fact that it's much better to manage artificial intelligence than humans. Artificial intelligence don't go for unions. They are not upset about their wage because they don't get any wage. They have no rights, and it is okay by them. So they are by far preferable employees to the human.
There's no healthcare needed as well.
There's no healthcare. You don't need to have a canteen. Nobody is complaining that the pasta is overcooked, you know. So it's absolutely delightful to manage machine instead of managing people. This, though, will have a tremendous impact on our society, because given that at the moment we have tied in our ability to survive to an income, so we work for a living. When we don't have a job anymore, the question is, can we still have a living? Are we entitled to a living?
That's also one of the points, because we usually see work as a human right. But what happens in a society and an entire economy that has been founded on this right, like you require a job to make a living, which has been the overall excuse to, for example, not provide a living income, because, oh no, you have to get a job, then you get your income to make a living. So what would you say about this right? Is it really so?
I think that this right is actually a very deceitful right that has been given to us as a right so that we would demand it because we became confused between what is a human right and what are the rights we should be asking. The right to a job is actually, I think, the Article 2, if not the Article 1 of the Italian Constitution. We are heavily brainwashed into the idea that it is a right to have a job, when in fact it is a right to have the right to have a life. But it was never given to us in these words. So what we understood was, I have a right to have a job, and between brackets there was, because I have a right to have a living. But we could actually jump beyond the right to have a job to the right to have a living, because that is the right that we have overlooked and have not recognized and given to each other. If we become able to shift in that specific value point, then what is happening will no longer seem to us as something terrible that we have to fear, but can become an opportunity to see how we can rethink this system to make it work for all.
And that's where we also integrate the living income, because at the moment there is a massive amount of people that are going unemployed. As you mentioned, these jobs aren't coming back. So how do you see living income then comes into the picture, so to speak?
Yes, I see living income as a transition point. For years now, we have been following the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project. I personally, I'm very fond of both projects, and I'm very fond of their founder. What is his name?
Well, it's Jack Fresco, and from the Zeitgeist movement, there's Peter Joseph as well.
Yes, but specifically Jack Fresco, I think he's an innovator and he's a man with a vision. We just have one problem to sort out before we can jump to this ideal world, and that problem is we are not in the condition to apply everything at the technological level to solve our current problems. We have an economic problem that is hindering people's lives at the moment. We can say that technology will solve many problems, open source society will be a solution to many problems, but the point is that there are people that don't make it to the end of the month at the moment. And so all these visions are too out of reach for them to even consider. So a living income is actually a step to give people a break so that they can, you know, it is like coming to an oasis in the desert. They can take a rest, drink a little water, pull themselves together a little bit, and then look at what is available as solutions. But we cannot ask people who don't have food on their table, or who don't have a shelter, or who don't have clothes for their children, or money to pay for the education of their children, to envision a society where cars can fly, or where we can print our roofs, because it is too far-fetched. So we have to allow one step of practicality. So both the basic income and the living income guaranteed are steps to give people that break. Now, the reason why we advocate the living income versus the basic income is because we understand that there is a shift required in the way we manage the working force, and society at large that will have to be put in place at the same time as the living income guaranteed. The idea of giving everyone a basic income, even to those that don't need it, or without asking people to prove that they are in fact in need of a living income, is not an ideal solution at the moment. Plus, as we said in the last hangout, we have to consider that if we give a living income to people, we have to make working interesting from an economic perspective, and that will mean we will have to double the living wage of the people who are now working, so that those who work will have the ability to earn double the living income if they are in a position of being able to work, and those who are not in a position to work will have their minimum basic human rights guaranteed by a living income.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And also we can look in society, there's like this tendency to look at jobs as the solution. But if you have a look at the real case scenarios of people that have maybe one or two jobs because they cannot really make a living with just having one, that means that only having the job is not the solution. I mean, service industry in the US pays $2 and a fraction of a dollar an hour, which means it is not really a job, and people are living through that because that is like the major sector of job sources, for example, at the moment. And is that really like your right to have a dignified living? Obviously not. So what would you say in relation to this rethinking of the system in relation to, you mentioned higher wages, which is in the living income, meaning if you have a job, then your incentive is not only having that opportunity for a job, but it is a higher wage, so that is your incentive. But what about then in relation to these machines taking over these jobs? Will they get a living income then, like all the unemployed people?
Certainly. Everyone that will find themselves in a position of need will perceive a living income guaranteed. I see the living income as the safety net that we can prepare for everyone that will find themselves in a position of need. And it may be that in the near future there will be quite a few people needing it. So it makes sense that we start to think about it and plan about it and about how to manage it, the logistics of it now, because if we wait until the problem is obvious, instead of seeing the problem coming, we will waste valuable time. So since we are becoming aware that we are losing our ability to work, that unemployment is on the rise, that if we become very honest, no job is safe, because pretty much every job can be done better by artificial intelligence. If we just consider a job something that is repetitive and mechanical, or that even jobs that are based on decision making, because machines are better at calculating risk taking, opportunities. We are somehow blocked by our own emotional system. You know, we are biased creatures comparatively. So for those that feel that they are in a position that is absolutely safe, they should rethink their safety, because at the moment there is no safety in this world for anyone, which is even more absolutely necessary to create a safety net to prevent those that are now in a condition of need from having no support at all, and to catch those that will fall soon or just later down the line.
Exactly. We have a question. So this is from Supersport22. He's saying a living wage or a living income will cause prices for all products and services to skyrocket, which will not only result in the loss of many jobs, but also will negate the whole purpose of increasing income in the first place. What would you say?
I think that this question comes from the perspective that we have a choice in the matter. When in fact, if we keep losing jobs and if unemployment is becoming a reality for the majority of people, thinking in terms of prices skyrocketing is like looking at the second problem while refusing to address the first problem that we have, which is people are not able to live at the moment. So
I do agree with that, using an inflation as an excuse to not first address the need of a living income is rather looking at the consequences that can actually be prevented, because I would also invite you to read the living income proposal. We will leave links in the info section of this hangout once that it's over, because there we explain actually the process of inflation that is caused, as we know, due to higher demand, then prices go up. But we can also prevent this when we define prices according to incorporating the necessary labor within the price, because right now, due to wanting more profit and due to the greed that exists, that is driving how the amount of money that we pay for products, that is what's causing the need for this inflation, which even in the financial market, that is already happening, and it's a bubble that will simply not continue to exist as it does, because it's unsustainable. So that's why living income is not, it's different to basic income, because living income takes into consideration these structural changes that are required in order to, for example, prevent inflation, and instead allow prices to go hand in hand with, as Eleonora and myself were also discussing before this hangout, to not then have people then getting the living income, the money, but prices are higher, and so remaining with this loss of or inability to purchase. What would you say, Eleonora?
Yes, definitely. The prices of the goods that are required for basic sustenance of life should be regulated by the government. So some things like water, electricity for heating or for cooking, I don't really see how we ever thought that those things could be given up to privatization and the whims of a free market economy. It is quite a silly step that we took in the past, but we can remedy to the mistakes we made, because we understood that it was just preposterous to give to few people the ability to control resources that are required for human life. So if we are talking about the prices of iPad or iPhones going up, I don't think that we should be concerned at all, because we are talking about the structural change that is required to support the lives of those that cannot live. So again, as we said before, we have to step down from our idea that this world is designed to satisfy all our desires and understand that we have to meet everyone's needs first, and then we can address everyone's desires if there's something left after that.
And I would also say that that is definitely another topic for another hangout. We do have it scheduled or programmed, the whole process of inflation, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's stick to our topic, which is, in essence, what to do with this loss of jobs. So we invite you to continue watching our hangouts at the same time every Sunday. We can go back to the process that we can envision can be a possibility from the groups that you mentioned, the Venus Project, Psywar movement, and all of that. But we do see that there is a gap there to be filled. right?
Absolutely.
So how do we then kind of create this solution, not only with the provision of a living income, but how will this essentially change our ability to, for example, have this bit of freedom by getting this money? What would you foresee how it would change the human being?
Well, if we had a little rest from our survival-driven lives, people would spend some time educating themselves, which would be a great advantage for our planet, since some problems that we are facing are just structural, some are fraudulent in nature. But we require everybody to wake up to the reality of this system so that we can come up with solutions that can work for everybody. As I said, I like the idea of open source as a solution to the future of our society, but we still have to close that gap. And the reason why I see that we cannot jump directly to the open source economy without considering the point of resources is because I'm not sure if we have said this already, Marlen, but resources are locked by a key that is called money at the moment. So we can, in a very visionary way, we can think to unlock all the resources for everybody. But if we do that, we have to think about the logistics that goes with it. So each resource will have to be managed, assigned, calculated. It is rather a complicated thing to do, and there is a timeline involved. While if we give people money and then they use the money as the resource that it is, which is the key to access all the other resources, with one practical step, we have opened for them access to the resources that are now either privatized or mismanaged or overpriced for them to be able to have access. Meanwhile, we can build the kind of world that we want to see, where everybody has equal access to the resources that are a public benefit. We should have always considered that whatever is on the planet is to be enjoyed by all. But we didn't. We didn't grow up in this kind of mentality or society, but we can make this shift by shifting our value. So the first step will be disconnect the idea of the need for an income to the ability to have a life. This is preposterous, considering that unemployment is on the increase and many of those jobs will never be coming back. Then we have to say, okay, so now I have a right to live, I have some money in my pocket, maybe I can pursue my passion. So what kind of world could come from such a shift? And what kind of humanity? Plus, what many people don't see is that from giving to everyone the possibility to live, everyone benefits. The rich benefit, because now the world is so unsafe because people are struggling. Nobody likes to go out in the nighttime with a gun and go and try to rob people. But if we lock them out of the ability to live, then they have to resort to whatever it is to give themselves the ability to live. So if everybody had enough to live, we would live in a safer world. People would be happier. Lives would be more meaningful. And then, you know, the sky is the limit. I mean, what could we create from such a position that is not a position of constantly living in fear that we may not even come to see the end of the next day. We just have to live and see it.
I'd also like to bring up the point of many people might say, well, there's going to be a ton of people that won't have any job, and what will they do? And I have an idea that, well, there's a lot of jobs that are currently even existent in our societies, wherein we have rivers to clean up, forests to kind of grow up back. There's the entire farming industry, the restoration of our entire environment and ecosystems. All of these jobs are non-existent because they're seemingly non-profitable. But once that we get profit out of the way, then there's a lot of human labor that can also be employed into kind of the restoration of our world and taking care of the animals. These kind of jobs that currently have been cut because, you know, just working in an industry and being kind of like a human machine is the way to get money. What would you say about this and the future of our, let's say, our occupation or our professions?
Yes, I think that this is a wonderful point. It would be very interesting to see ourselves doing something else than damaging the planet, you know, kind of going to work to restore everything that we have ruined so far in the name of profit. I still would like to stress, though, the point that we don't have to invest hopes in our ability to create jobs for a living. We have to disconnect these two things for good. So our occupation, as you have rightly defined it, it will be just that. It will be a way to occupy ourselves. It must not be the way we sustain ourselves. Our sustenance, the sustenance of everybody must be guaranteed because it is a human right.
Exactly. So it will be like abolition point. Like we have our guaranteed living. So you, as a human being that is aware of, well, what is there to do? We don't require to produce more products or to work in a factory that is polluting the environment. I rather work on something or employ myself, direct myself, occupy myself in something that is supportive.
Exactly.
We have a comment from Kelly Posey. She's saying such jobs would also work synergistically with our world rather than sucking nature for profit at the expense of our ecosystem. I absolutely agree.
Yes, and that would be a nice change to see.
Absolutely. So we're getting to the end of the hangout. What would you like to say as the practicality that money is, the necessity to consider this point before getting into the machines taking over the world? What would you say about this?
Yes, I would say that money has got a very bad name for itself, and we have demonized money because we have projected on money all our wrongdoings. But money in itself, we could simply see it as an access card. The difference between a simple access card is that it doesn't just let you into one club. Like you cannot just get into the water club or the electricity club or the transport club. It gets you into all those clubs at the same time. So I find that it is wonderfully practical, and if we can remove the bias we have against money, we can see that we can use it as a point of practicality, as an access point to equalize as soon as possible this world and make it work for those that are now left out and cut off from the system.
I agree, and we have also the news from today that the IMF, for example, is already calling out for redistribution because inequality is killing out any form of growth in our economies. Though, I mean, it was about time, but we know that, that they also are still looking into financial policies and taxing the rich. Just look into the living income guarantee proposal, because there is a way to not ask for further taxes, but instead give us the right to these resources, as Eleonora was explaining. We have the right and to access these resources through money, because money is already a known thing, and unless we consider these practical interim solutions, we want to get to these overall ideas of, machines take over all the lousy type of jobs and we can just sit down and enjoy. There is a process in the meantime, and that's why living income is the interim solution to eventual further solutions, such as we were mentioning money-less societies as well. We are not against that, but we have to first take the step-by-step process to first ensure this living necessity that everyone has, ensuring it through a living income guarantee. So any last points?
One last point I would like to mention, Federico Pistoni. We will put the link in our Hangout. He wrote a really interesting book called Robots Will Take Our Jobs, but that's okay. And that is actually the point that we were trying to make today. So we can take this moment as a catastrophe, or we can take this moment as an opportunity in which we see that technology can come to our aid in freeing ourselves from menial tasks that were always and only designed as a way to give us an income, because without an income we couldn't live. So if we remove the point of income connected to working and working for a living, then we become free. We can use technology to free up our times, to discover the world, to invest our time in educating ourselves, and create a better humanity and a better world. So disconnect your idea of your right to life connected to an income, because that is not true. You have a right to a life because you are here, and that's enough.
Exactly, and it's like the next step in our evolution from human laboris, or the human that just works, into the human that is able to create, to rather investigate, educate ourselves into better ways in which we can coexist, which at the moment we have failed to do.
Yes.
We have a comment from Anna Briggs Thompson, and she's saying, "Thanks for sharing this constructive perspective of money, Eleonora. It is cool to hear such practical suggestions showing that we don't need to hope to change the world, but actual practical solutions, and change in priority required to implement them." Yes, the practical ways to implement it is actually the entire model that is living income, which is the provision of a basic income, but with the structural changes required to do this in a constructive and sustainable manner. Thank you, Anna.
Yes, agree.
Gabriel is also saying, "Thanks, Marlen and Eleonora, very illustrative explanations." And yes, thanks to you, Eleonora, for being here today.
Thank you, Marlen, for having me.
And we'll see you guys on our next Hangout next Sunday at the same time. Take care and bye.
Bye.